To close out this fantastic event, I have the pleasure of interviewing Jonathan Fisher, Group CEO of Holmes Place and also Chairman of the new fitness franchise TRIB International. Jonathan is one of the most respected and recognised businessmen in the entire of the global fitness industry. Holmes Place has one of the largest memberships in the entire of the global fitness industry. He is always one to share ideas generously and give insight into where he believes we can all do better and grow our industry. It's a great conversation. I really enjoyed this. And it's a fitting way to end this summit and end this year speaking to such a legend. Ladies and gentlemen, Jonathan Fisher. Jonathan, thank you very much for joining us here today. 2020 has been a crazy year. Can you sum it up in a few words or a few sentences?
Yeah, I've taken your question very, very literally, Ross, and thank you for inviting me. So a few words, humbling. It's been humbling. It's been growing, and it's been disappointing. So let me unpack those for you. I think it's been humbling because this pandemic, it's a force of nature, and like being in a tornado or an earthquake or witnessing a tsunami, it's awesome. You're blown away by the power of nature, and this has been humbling to see how such a little thing as a virus can, of course, just wash over us like a tsunami and cause so much disruption and dislocation. So it's been a very humbling experience, I think, in that regard, to sort of confront how little control we have in life in general. And as business people, many of us are seeing businesses that we've built over decades, being devastated in months. It's very difficult to witness. So a very humbling experience, but together, for me, I feel that when you're humbled, there's always a tremendous opportunity to enter into a phase of personal growth, and I feel that's taken the place for myself and other people around. So accelerated growth, personal growth, taking across many different dimensions. And I think most importantly, when you're humbled, it gives you an opportunity to improve yourself and to identify and correct mistakes that you feel you've done personally or collectively as a society, and then finally sort of rise up to the challenge and sort of rediscover your hero, your heroic qualities that we all have. And the last word, disappointing, is for me it's disappointing because, as I was just speaking to you earlier, there's I feel like we've overreacted in some ways to this crisis and this pandemic, and we've underreacted as well. So we've been putting too much energy in some places and not enough in others. And I think we've overreacted in trying to reduce the immediate impact of the pandemic. I was just telling you, I'm here in Madrid, and Madrid was hit very hard by this crisis, and everybody is. I've been here for a day and a night, and everybody is doing everything. Everybody is open. There's a curfew at midnight. Everybody is 100% compliant with wearing masks in all places and circumstances, but it's not stopping anybody from doing anything. And I think that's been really good to see. But the disappointing side is, for me, is that whilst efforts have been made to really sort of reduce the immediate impact of this, very little effort and thought has gone into trying to address some of the root causes of why we've got this pandemic. And it's been proven. It's connected with animal trading. It's connected with animal agriculture. It's connected with the destruction of environments, and it all roots from taking an overwhelmingly exploitative approach to nature and the environment. So for me, it's disappointing that there's less focus on how can we live and do business in a more sustainable way going forward, so as to prevent this terrible experience happening again.
Let's take a trip back down memory lane, Jonathan. Before COVID, those days did exist, a lot more rosier days. You had such a huge growth trajectory. You were building an incredible company. And then you had to go from a growth mindset into crisis management. And even coming out the back of that with the lockdowns and reopenings, again, moving so quickly between those two states. How hard has this been to be done? How difficult, how challenging as a business leader is moving between these states?
You know, I think that's part of the job description. You know, so I don't think it's too hard. You know, a leader of an organization or a CEO needs to be good at compartmentalizing the different aspects of the business and multitasking and working across, you know, multiple business dimensions. So from a process point of view, whilst it's much more dramatic, you know, the process is the same process that you're doing all the time. The scale has perhaps changed, both in terms of the risk management, the price to pay, and the opportunities that also, you know, emerge from it. So it's not like a new skill to be developed. I think you've got to have a balanced emotional state to sort of go through these periods successfully. And I think, you know, a growth mindset naturally comes once you've overcome your crises and stability's been restored. And growth for me is very much part of strategy in a business. Of course, there's opportunistic growth, but I'm a firm believer and exponent of the importance of strategic thinking in business and executing strategies. And I think strategy needs to be reviewed regularly. So even if you're in crisis and stability and building your treasury phase of running a company, you need to be constantly reviewing strategy. And so that means you need to always be looking at where is your growth going to be coming from. So it's also about timing, you know, and, you know, for example, TRIB, which is a company which is in the early stage of its growth trajectory, you know, even this period during this pandemic, it's been a growth period. So it's also about timing. So you need to be able to swap between the two and play your best game in either situation.
Let's look at strategy and positioning. At its inception, Holmes Place was always trying to move away from just fitness and be more of a lifestyle brand with lifestyle offerings. In the past few months, you've also been a huge advocate from moving fitness into the health sector. How do we as an industry be seen and be recognized as part of the health industry at large? Is it a strategic play? Is it operationally? What do we have to do to change people's opinions?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And I think there have been a lot of people who've been really getting passionate about underlining the positive health benefits that we as an industry have. And I definitely do endorse that. We've also clearly fallen short of it. And so I think the first step in trying to, you know, improve yourself or your situation is to, you know, understand why you've fallen short. And I think we need to objectively realize who we are as an industry. And as an industry, we evolved out of sport, basically. You know, we came out of sports science and sports, you know, not really to do with health. You know, health is something to make sure that it's there just in order to achieve something else. So it's not really health focused. And then, you know, out of sport, we developed into a leisure sector, which in some ways is a euphemism for an industry dedicated to improving people's appearance. So, you know, it's really like a sort of a beauty industry almost is what we've, you know, become. You know, people come to us and join us because they want to look better. That's the vast majority of people. So, you know, I think we've got to understand who we are, because that's a culture that's been built over decades, and to sort of change that in a pivot is not going to happen easily. And you also got to think about our motivation for doing that. So if our motivation for doing that is to be classed as an essential service so that we don't get locked down in a pandemic, that's a very short-term approach. So yes, I would say that our approach to underlining the health benefits of what we do needs to be a strategic approach. So if it's a strategic approach that says that's going to help us expand the market, then, you know, I think we need to test that hypothesis and actually do some strategic work, and actually, you know, ask ourselves as an industry and also as individual businesses as, why do I really want to underline health benefits? Because if you're looking to attract a very young segment of the market with fitness, speaking about health actually isn't interesting for them. So underlining the health benefits is not actually very relevant or has resonance. So who's your existing and your target market? Who's the market you want for the future? And are they interested in health? And when you get the answers to those questions, it will help direct the approach. But without giving sort of vague, general guidelines, to your question, I think on an industry level we can do a couple of things. Liz Terry from Health Club Management, who I think's been absolutely phenomenal during this whole period as a spokesperson for the industry. I think she's done a very good piece about how we can start to change the way we perceive ourselves and the way we are perceived by the language we use. And I'd say that's worth a read as a starting place. The second point is I think we need to appoint chief medical officers to fitness associations and bodies that represent the fitness sector, so that they start to change our inner culture and they start to impact on the directors of our own strategies. And also to do that in companies. And Holmes Place, did that, quite a few years ago, appointed a chief medical officer so that they can start to do those things, affect internal culture and inform strategy. And then finally, I would say that, we need to, as an industry, we need to focus on what's achievable. Think big and start small. Health is a very complicated subject. Doctors study 7 years to be a general practitioner. Specialists study for decades to become specialists. So, health is not a simple thing to deliver. So I think we need to think big and start small. And the two areas where I would recommend the industry focus on is mental health. I think mental health is something that we don't need to do a lot more as an industry to deliver the results and benefits of mental health. And the BRIC Foundation in the US is doing some great work in really proving that and getting clinical and data to actually support that thesis. And I think going down that channel of how exercise and fitness really builds resilience and strengthens mental health is, I think, a very interesting direction for the industry to go in. And then the final area, which I think is closer to us that we can sort of bridge into, is nutrition. I personally, I believe nutrition is as important or even more important than exercise for health. And I think if we want to be really meaningful in the health space, then I think we've got to look at nutrition as well. So those would be the pointers that I would give.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of investment here in Asia in nutrition and mental well-being. And coming back to your point about Liz, she has been a rock star through this. So Liz, if you're watching, congratulations on a really incredible job. Part of your job, of course, as Group CEO is looking at new investments to grow the company, Jonathan. Obviously, you have and you still have an investment pipeline. But given what's happened in 2020, how have you reevaluated this investment pipeline?
We sort of deal with those sort of questions on a strategic basis. So it's we try to keep our investments focused on what's really strategically important. So from at this point in time, I would say our investments which are aligned with our digital integrations are our key investments. They've been accelerated. They take higher priority. And I think for us, any investments that help help us make that transition into a truly omni-channel business, those are the investments we're prioritizing.
Now, you have an international portfolio. As markets start to stabilize in the next few months, especially when the vaccine becomes readily available and consumers across the world become, high demand to move back into facilities, where do you believe your growth opportunities lie? Is it in new demographics? Is it in new geographies? Or do you believe there's upside in the potential geographies you already have just now?
I think it's all of the above. So obviously strategy is about making the choice as to where you're going to get the best return and be sustainably competitive in sort of making those choices. We definitely feel that in the markets we're working in, by becoming omni-channel and by expanding our services in that way, I think there's a lot of organic growth to take place. And I'd say that would be our immediate focus. I think in addition to that, I think there are some geographical markets at least for the Holmes Place business, that are very well suited to the holistic and sort of comprehensive approach that Holmes Place takes. Holmes Place looks at mental approach, physical exercise, and nutrition as basically the three pillars, and it works on all of those levels. And it also works on creating a very social atmosphere in the clubs. And all of those qualities, I think, make it very well suited for the Asian market. I think the Asian market, at its root, at essence, takes a much more holistic approach to lifestyle management, and I think will appreciate the Holmes Place approach in that regard. And secondly, I think they give a lot of value to the social dimension of belonging to a differentiated club atmosphere. So that would be my answer for the Holmes Place. And for TRIB, it's a sort of global growth possibility, and because it's a franchise business, we can expand at a totally different rate there.
Now, the good thing about 2020 is the acceleration across digital and technology. Of course, with this acceleration pathway, there's been a flood of technology solutions come into the marketplace, almost mind-boggling how quickly they're getting developed. How difficult is it to have a look at the marketplace at the moment and to select the right technologies, not just to stay relevant, but of course to future-proof the business going forward?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm sounding repetitive here. It's all about strategy. So that investment, in the digital and tech space, really needs to be focused and aligned with your strategic objectives. So if, for example, you've got great tech or digital development, etc., that's not really supporting your strategic direction as a brand or a business, then maybe it's a nice to have, and you shouldn't spend your time and energy and resources doing it. Whereas if it is strategically aligned, then I think it becomes very important. And then in choosing the partners and suppliers with regard to that, you've got to make sure that they're going to be able to adapt that tech in order to achieve your strategic objectives. And so for me, that's been very important, to understand that I'm working with partners who have got the flexibility to help me do the things in the way that it needs to get done for that particular business case. So it's really got to fit into that strategic filter.
Now, in Q2, the buzzword of the year was the new norm. Thankfully, we don't hear that so often now. Q3, probably virtual and digital fitness. And in Q4, hybridization is probably the word that's on the lips of everybody. What are your thoughts on hybridization, Jonathan, and the future of it?
I think it's, as you point out, it is the present, meaning it's not a question of whether this is going to be the future. It is the present. The companies that I call it a different word. I use omni-channel, but whether you're talking about a hybrid model or an omni-channel model, that's where you need to be at the moment, in my opinion. And you need to, if you're not there, then you need to transition there. So, for example, in a sort of much younger business like TRIB, where we've been building everything now, it's very easy to get to be fully omni-channel very quickly. And actually, we used the pandemic period to do that, to get fully with a much bigger sort of business and brand. It takes a longer time, and you've got more transition. So definitely the future and also the present.
Let's take a minute on TRIB. Kevin and his team have done an incredible job at building this brand across the globe, and it really has got momentum. What is the secrets to its success, and what does the next 12 months hold in store for TRIB?
The secret to the TRIB success is, I think, twofold. The reason why we invested in TRIB and we took control of that business was because we were blown away by the NPS scores that this business has. So the people who use TRIB, they get NPS scores which are off the scale. I work desperately hard in Holmes Place to get NPS scores half of that, or even a quarter of it. So we were blown away by the sort of magic that's created in the experience, and I think that's because Kevin's always really focused on the experience more than anything, and the details that lead to that experience. There's been tremendous amount of focus in terms of sort of getting a workout experience that really leaves you feeling elated. And when you have that experience, of course, you go away and you're absolutely delighted to share it with your friends and family, and that's of course the very high NPS score. So I'd say on the one hand, there's that magic's been created in the workout, and the second thing is I just think the culture that's been created by Kevin and the team in the way that they work, it's just a very fresh and dynamic and kind, energetic culture, very positive. And I think people are looking for that in life, and particularly at the moment. So I'd say I think that's been a success. And we used the pandemic period to really strengthen our processes, so that we're ready for growth ahead. And because it's a franchise business, we're going to start speaking with parties interested in master franchises in 2021. And at the back end of 21, we'll do another capital raise and look to go to the US. So that's basically our plan.
Anyone not following Kevin and Tribe, you have to do so. It really is a very, very exciting brand, and one that we think are going to make some great inroads in 2021. One last question, Jonathan, before we let you slip away. Let's have a look at member confidence and building members back into clubs. Of course, you're operating across a number of different countries. You've saw what works and what hasn't worked. How do we get members more frequently back into our clubs?
Unfortunately, I think we're hostage to the media. What I see is that whatever steps you take, and we can speak about them, and they all help. If the media starts creating fear and anxiety about what's happening, then you can't combat that. And what you get left with is a core of members who aren't swayed by media perception of what's happening around there. They don't get fearful and anxious. Our clubs are safe. I mean, I worked out last night in Madrid, right, in one of our Tribe stores. It couldn't have been a more safe experience. It was incredible. And I know that, the vast majority of clubs across the globe are giving those sorts of experiences, but it's not objective. It's emotional, and it's perception, and perception these days is created through social media and through media in general. So very difficult. Ultimately, my answer to that question is the deployment of vaccines. That's what it's gonna take. Meaning, once vaccines are beginning to be deployed, then all the efforts we make will work. And our industry has always done best through word of mouth. And if you can get your members to be telling their friends and family that yes, they trust this environment, it's safe, it's good, it's professional, then I think that level of confidence builds organically and very effectively. I think the associations can also do good work. I think it's very important to counter with data. The facts. The facts are that very, very few people contract COVID or even report that they've got COVID whilst being a user of fitness facilities. So the data is very strong, and I think we can be better at disseminating that data. So, for example, in the last 3 weeks across Holmes Place, less than 3 people in 12,000 get COVID. Not from our clubs, but less than 3 people who contract COVID have been using our clubs out of 12,000 over the last 3 weeks. So the statistics and the data really support us as being a safe place to come and strengthen your resilience and maintain your health.
Well, look, I think that's a great note to end it on, Jonathan. We have to be positive, and we have to be continuously pushing a great agenda for our industry to come back and be recognized as part of the solution. Jonathan, many thanks for your time today. Keep up the fantastic work, both at Holmes Place and with Tribe, and look forward to seeing you in the new year.
Ross, thank you for the invitation, and I'd like to put you up there with Liz. I think the work that you've been doing is also absolutely great in supporting, and thank you for that.
What a fitting way to end, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Jonathan, for sharing those insights so generously. Well, that wraps up 2020. for us, ladies and gentlemen. A huge thank you for all of you who have joined us, not just at this event, but of course across our events in 2020. Our speakers, our sponsors, our partners, our allies, whoever you are, wherever you are, thank you very much for your time. We know it's been a challenging year. We know that, having spoken to many of you. 2020 will be brighter, and although it will be challenging from the start, the long-term future of our industry is bright. We look forward to being there with you as you regrow, as we rebuild, as we strengthen and future-proof this industry. We're excited to move forward with you and help you on your journey to better business. Thank you again. Godspeed. Have a fantastic festive season, and we will see you all in 2021. Goodbye.